On today's episode of the Glue Guys, wow. James Harden trade,
big.
Ben Simmons.
It's a big day.
We're going to talk about it.
Big day.
Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys, Netsdaily.com, The Athletic, a subsidiary of the New York Times. Brian.
Lego. Oh God! What?
Was that so loud in your ears?
It was fine. Wait, what was it? Oh my gosh! What just happened?
Glass breaking.
Oh my lord!
Phone calls, trade deadline, a sword. Brian.
Oh my God!
James Harden's been traded. Ben Simmons is a Brooklyn Net. Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, 2 first-round picks. Paul Millsap's done with the Nets.
That's the hardest part. Wow, it's been a real whirlwind, Mike. I'll tell you what. From beginning to end, from denial to acceptance to, complete 180 degrees. Like fuck Harden, Team Simmons for life. Just kidding. I don't know. Maybe I feel that way. But it's been a roller coaster over the last couple of days here, Mike, or weeks even. Especially with all that terrible basketball, which really was if it wasn't for all that terrible basketball in the last 2 weeks, like things might be different. but here we are. How do you feel, Mike?
I can't help but think about there was someone that tweeted at us when we did an episode called "The Silliness of the James Harden Rumors." One person tweeted at us, and I can't help thinking about that person in this moment.
Hey,
what about you, Brian?
line up for your wedgie, dude, nerd. Okay, that's what I think.
Do you hate that I said that? Or
no, I liked it. I liked it. It
Okay,
came full
good.
circle. We got in a fight about that before the show, about whether we should lead with that.
And I said we shouldn't.
Yeah, but that was a nice tip of the cap. Anyways. But here we are, Mike. X's and O's. Let's get right into it. What does this do for the Nets offense? What does this do for?
Brian and I also talked about that. I want Brian to get more into it quickly, and that's what's happening.
That's what that was.
So I'm just for straight up reaction. I'm happy it happened. I was done with James Harden. This whole situation from the moment we had that podcast where it was the silliness, the James Harden trade, to now, I have so soured on James Harden.
You did. You very publicly soured on him. You were pumping the Twitter like you don't. You know what? DGAF.
We are literally of the generation. I think we are a year older than James Harden in life years, in human years, not dog years.
Okay.
But human years, and I'm completely of the player empowerment era. Do whatever you want. Make as much money as you want. Don't give teams discounts. Move from team to team. But this situation. Every situation's unique. This was so stark in, hey, I'm grumpy too. I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
He owed nothing to the Nets. I'm not saying that. I just think as someone who's a follower of the team, someone who watches this team, he's allowed to feel how he feels. How I feel is like, I'm kind of sick of you. You've been playing bad basketball. You put on the worst performance of your career in Sacramento. Then you've been away for this phantom hamstring injury, which Philadelphia, you guys should be careful because his hammies are screwed up and you're about to pay him $60 million a year. I would watch out, Daryl Morey, because he suddenly can't play. He also has a hand issue. Everyone watch out. Be careful of that. You guys have damaged goods. I was done with it.
I just imagined him like being like, "What hurts you today?" Be like, hamstring. A hamstring is a thing, right? Isn't it?
And then the trainer texts Steve Nash. Steve looks at it and he was like, "You said hand strain or hamstring? Hamstring." Yeah. And it was simply autocorrect. Yeah. That was all. It's always been the hamstring, but we said hand.
Yeah, hamstring.
Strain.
Yeah.
I was done with it, and like, frankly. Brian and I talked about my mental health for the past month. My mental health has been bad because of this James Harden thing.
It's a long winter, and he's not helping. We talked about this the other day on the phone though, that like why everyone collectively soured on James Harden so quickly, and I think I have a theory, and we talked about it. Sure. You know my theory, but I'll say it again like pretend like he didn't. My theory is like why Kyrie Irving is still has like a pretty strong cohort of supporters, and even still people who like us maybe who are a little bit like upset with Kyrie, acknowledge that it's great that when he plays he's great and we want him to play and so on and so forth. The thing that the cardinal sin that Harden committed was the optics sin. He played bad basketball repeatedly. And once that's in, it takes a bad quarter. It takes a bad half for fans to just see that and be like, well, that's it. Throw up your hands. This guy is dead to us. He is. And that's like Harden's means of protest is through that, because like Woj tweeted, before, he didn't want to be seen as a person who was in outright rebellion against two teams in a row, which is a funny, interesting PR tactic when you're like so conspicuously dogging it on the court. Like, interesting choice. I don't know which is better, but they're both bad choices. It's just interesting how fast it was like Harden sucks. He's got to go. I think it's a good deal. We're going to get into it. I'm still a little wary of the whole relationship with regards to how Kyrie stands. We don't want to get into that. Mandates, blah, blah, blah. Boring. We want to talk about Ben Simmons, Mike. And I want you to start.
Well, and I'll support this is from Mike Mazzia. Mike used to work, I think, for the Daily News and ESPN, covered the Nets for ESPN. He says a source suggested to him today of how this whole Harden situation got to where it is. This is what the source said. I believe it's mostly Kyrie based is what's going on.
Actually was the source for that. Sorry. Anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Excuse me. Anthony Puccio had tweeted out too a video of when Kyrie was set to return. This was December 30th. Harden's talking about it, and he's not like super happy discussing it. Now, I do remember James Harden joking about wanting to give Kyrie the shot and all that stuff.
Interesting.
So I do want to. We are going to talk about Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Seth Curry. I though agree with you. And how could you disagree with this? Part of the issue was Kyrie ultimately. Like, if Kyrie had done what 75% of human adults have decided to do in this country, or whatever the number is, to get vaccinated, what all the scientists would say, I think the arc of the season would be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost, I don't know if I can rationalize this, but in my brain, I've already compartmentalized the Kyrie situation.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through the emotional pendulum regarding Kyrie, and I've already come to the point of like, there's no hope for him in getting vaccinated. So I'm digging deep within local mandates and, local ordinances.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I still separate Harden and Kyrie a little bit. Where like, shouldn't Harden have some foresight to say Kevin Durant's going to be back in 2 weeks? Joe Harris will probably be back. We don't know about that yet.
Yeah. I mean, and sorry to cut you off, but I think it's like when I think about, what it takes to be James Harden and play at the level that he's played at for as long as he has. The thing that I think about is like how much agency, how much control you have over your life, how much, I would imagine that he, like we were talking about, like the idea that he is now beholden to what the New York Post says about the mandates in the city to find out if he's going to win a championship this year is like, no, like screw this. I'm not going to be doing that. Like I want a little bit more agency. I want a little bit more control over what happens. If we fail, it's because everyone was out there living and dying on the court and not, because the mandates got pushed back 6 months or whatever, and this is the time to do it. So he's got like, one more shot in his mind if we're, I don't know where things are headed with Kyrie or whatever, but anyways.
Yeah, I'm so confused about just James Harden's thinking, because back when he got traded to the Nets, the original reporting was that Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Rockets, goes to Harden and says, hey, we could trade you to Philly or Brooklyn. Who do you want? And of course, the situation in Philly was exactly the same, if actually not an easier deal to be done, which would have been just Simmons for Harden straight up or whatever it would have been. And he chooses the Nets, and he's here. There's injuries. They go to the second round. They should have beaten the Bucks, but his hamstring injury and Giannis undercutting Kyrie is the reason why the Nets did not go to the Eastern Conference
That's
Finals.
The whole downfall of everything is Giannis undercutting. That's really the source of it all.
If there's a documentary, it
starts there.
Yeah. And so then we go into this season. Kyrie's vaccination issue remains an issue. Kevin Durant gets hurt. But at the time that Kevin Durant gets hurt, the Nets are first in the East. If maybe they were second by a half a game or whatever. but they were still like top of the East. The rest of the East wasn't looking all that intimidating. And yet something has happened, and it could be Kyrie. Just something has happened that made James Harden get turned off from the situation. And I just don't think he's going to this dramatically better situation. Like, we've litigated this a million times. I would rather be with Kevin Durant and part-time Kyrie than Joel Embiid. That's how I would prefer to roll.
Yeah,
but
I was just listening to the Mode to Keel on the Athletic stream just a second ago. Friend of the show.
Look at you.
I was doing some advanced research, and he was talking about how he's explicitly feels the fit is bad with Joel Embiid and Harden for the reason that that Harden plays at his best with a rim running big, and Joel Embiid has been a pick and pop and post player that requires a lot of around off the ball, playing off the post kind of movement, of which James Harden has never ever engaged in on any level. So he's a little bit dubious of the fit, even just like from a big macro position. But that's us just kind of trying to dance on the grave of the Sixers on this. What do you like about what we got back, Mike? Are you excited?
I am so excited because I'm excited because I was done with Harden. Emotionally, I couldn't put myself in the position of trying to like really rally around Harden after all the reporting that had been coming out over the past month. And now, like you're seeing, here's from Adrian Wojnarowski. He's a reporter at ESPN. I don't know if you know who he is. Ben Simmons has already talked to Kevin Durant and Sean Marks. Rich Paul tells ESPN. Rich Paul's ready to go, baby.
Yeah, he's fired up.
Simmons is eager to join the Nets in a ramp up for return to play this season. Paul says, we've got work to do to get him back to play, but it's a great step in the right direction.
You don't want to hear that. What kind of a spokes? We got work to do. To work.
That is,
roll up your sleeves, boys.
There's a very strange tweet that went out. Someone was sitting next to Tim Bontemps in, I think, the Philadelphia Sixers press room, and they were quoting Tim Bontemps, where Tim Bontemps was like, Ben Simmons can't come back immediately because it would ruin his mental health case. Like, the idea that he had mental health issues. Why would those issues suddenly go away just because he's traded? Which, frankly, I mean, he hated being in Philadelphia. Those caused his mental health issues. Brooklyn, he's in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
those would be alleviated.
Philadelphia ascites is what he had, and my wife's from Philly, so I can't talk too much shit.
But I think that's what Rich Paul's doing. He said we have work to do to get him back to play. There's going to be like a 3-week ramp up, which will coincide with Kevin Durant's MCL recovery.
Yeah, we're going to get some electroshock therapy, Get it in there. Are these off color? Are these bad? This is poor form?
No,
that's fine, right?
We are respectful.
Yeah.
We're being he has mental health problems, but I think a lot of it was born of the environment that he was playing in,
right,
or being told to play in. Now he's in Brooklyn. Hey, life is good.
Life's good.
Live life or whatever.
Forget about it. Forget about it. There you go.
I'm excited. Are you excited about basketball?
I mean, yes, I am. Again, I think Harden did us all the favor. If there's a couple of different things to think about here, but like the favor that he did for us was to paint us a picture of some of the worst basketball ever in the history of mankind. That Celtics game was so, like, it wasn't even funny bad. Like, as bad as the score was, like, it was like, oh, this is like comically bad. It was just deep sadness, and that was that was Harden's gift to us. It's like, this is what it could look like in a world in which this goes even further south, and we don't part ways amicably, and you don't have an exciting, athletic, dynamic young player to lead you through this dark winter that you've been going through right now. So in many ways, I'm thankful, as ever, of James Harden. But I am actually, it didn't take me too long to get excited about the prospect of Ben Simmons being a pretty dynamic little piece. We had become a slow, plodding team with James Harden. We had, having just Kyrie Irving come back for those games was like, oh, that's what it feels like to be, like, fast. Like, it's fun to be a fast team. And, we talked about, like, whether it's Harden's like heart or whether it's his just new body, that this is the new norm for him or whatever, or a combination of the both. It could be a greasy heart situation. I don't want to go there, but he was not an energizing force on any level. He was like, even at our best, we were pretty sluggish and methodical, and it was good. We had a very efficient offense last year when it was all working, the most efficient. But it is time for a change. You know it when you see it, when it's time for a change, and when it happens, it just kind of it's it's good. It's a breath of fresh air. Now, when Ben Simmons comes back, have we solved the overarching problems? No, I don't think we have. I think Kyrie represents an unknown problem. Again, we've talked about it 100 million times, so we don't need to do it again. But having Ben Simmons, who is a person with things to prove, he really has some stuff that he wants to show us. And for that, I'm just ready for fun basketball again. And I think he represents that maybe.
Yeah. And so one negative of the trade is that the part-time status of Kyrie, if you have full-time James Harden, then you always have a point guard, right? The Nets actually do need to go into the buyout market and grab some veteran point guard who's, I always talk about George Hill, a George Hill comparable. It just has to be a steady hand, because if you look at their team, I love the makeup of their team, but they don't have a backup point guard right now. The closest thing they have is Patty Mills, and he's not a point guard. I mean, Curry can probably handle the ball some, but he's not initiating your offense. Obviously, Kevin Durant, when he's back, you're putting the ball in his hands. Ben Simmons is a kind of a version of a point guard that is extremely interesting, but ultimately, is he your backup point guard in a way? Is he the bench point guard?
We don't even have a starting point guard by last year's standards, right? I mean, we are kind of a point guardless team, and maybe that's something. Hey, Steve Nash, maybe that's a challenge you can rise to, dog, because people are kind of doubting your skills right now.
You think Steve should come out of retirement, player coach?
Hey, now you're talking.
So here's positives. Okay, as you talked about, Ben Simmons is going to provide energy. He's a dramatically better defender. He is not only just a better defender than James Harden, he's a much more versatile defender. He can, the funny thing is that Harden's best form of defense is his post defense. Simmons is one of the biggest Swiss Army knife style defenders in the NBA. He can lock up guards and he can play guys in the post on some level. So you get all of this amazing versatility. He'll help your fast break because he has the ability to get the rebound. He will help the Nets rebounding, which has been a big problem because him being on the floor, the team will be much better at actually rebounding the ball. The thing that surprised me is I know we all focused on Maxey. The whole conversation was the Nets better get Maxey and all that stuff. I think this is an amazing haul for the Nets, who seemed like they were just playing chicken for so many weeks. It seemed like they were not engaging on any real level for trade discussions. They ended up getting Ben Simmons, who I am excited about, on the record. Seth Curry, who this team, Seth Curry is a top 5 3-point shooter in the NBA.
We have 3 of the top 5 shooters in the NBA right now on this roster.
And the other 2 on the roster that aren't part of that group are Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, right? We have our role players are the best 3-point shooters in the NBA, plus Kyrie
some
and
of the more
KD.
high volume plus efficiency 3-point shooters.
I do want to see. I know this would be the smallest lineup in NBA history. I do want the Kyrie, Patty Mills, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, KD lineup just splash it in.
Come on,
okay? 5-out offense.
Who doesn't want to see it?
All spacing. I just want to see it. See what happens.
We'll see it.
And then I want to see the Nick Claxton, LaMarcus Aldridge, Drummond, Blake Griffin, James Johnson lineup. And they just maul people to death.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Do you think we'll see some Drummond minutes out there? You're gonna.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah,
let's
take a break.
power rank the bigs.
Oh, I thought you wanted to take a break. That was your.
Yeah,
sometimes
I do need to take a break soon. But let's power rank the bigs. Drummond, Claxton, because Claxton. So the rumor was pretty quickly if the Nets wanted to trade Claxton because of the logjam at center now that the team suddenly has. He's on the team. So Claxton, Drummond, LaMarcus Aldridge, and I'll put Blake in there as the small ball 5. But I think Blake's at the bottom of the list for both of us.
We get a weird front court rotation. That's just, when you lay it out like that, it's just weird. If Claxton had really separated himself from the pack, this would be so easy. But he's letting Daron Sharp eat his lunch right now. It's ridiculous.
The thing is, they can't rely on Claxton at all. He has shown that he can't maintain health at this point. That there's always going to be some weird minor medical issue or very mysterious medical issue that will just lead them to that he won't be available. And I think So I haven't watched a ton of Drummond this year. He's always been an elite rebounder. He's always been a PER god, but like like discounted dramatically from like the real analytical crowd.
Yeah.
Even though he has a high PER. The thing I like about Drummond, and you'll know this, just a big dude. Just a big hairy dude. And I get behind.
It's really all it takes. It's really all it takes.
Right behind him.
Yeah.
A big fan of just slide in right behind those big hairy guys. I'm so excited. So I like so if they're going to add a center within the rotation that they already had, skinny, flexible Claxton, the dinosaur-like LaMarcus Aldridge, the mid-range god. I like the other pitch that they now have, which is Andre Drummond. I'm just going to maul the crap out of it.
It's really funny. I completely forgot about Aldridge too and all this. Like, I don't know. I just, it's such a weird front court rotation that just people like when they're out for a long enough period where you like kind of forget about them, and then they come back and you're like, oh yeah, we have LaMarcus Aldridge on this team. I forgot about that.
Well, and like really, we should be adding Ben Simmons to the center options because there's going to be lineups where it's Ben and KD, and then Joe Harris, Patty Mills, and Kyrie, right? Like that's it's still a decently sized lineup, and Ben is going to be operating as the 5 offensively at least, and defensively, him and KD patrolling sort of the paint area, blocking shots that's the exciting thing about this is that for the first time in a while, we'll be able to be thrilled by the defensive side of the floor for the Nets as opposed to being like terrified because they've just been Charmin soft for too long.
And we got 2 picks, Mike. There's that too. Is Maxey one of those picks? Is that what the holdup was, you think?
Well, it was weird. They kept Thibault was the name at the end.
Yeah.
And the 76ers won't include Thibault. They will not. They won't do it. He's not worth 2 first-round picks. So those I think definitely this year's first-round pick. So the Nets got an unprotected first this year and a protected 2027, which I think is just top 8 protected. I guess the Thibault piece was the protected 2027, and the unprotected was just always in the deal. And they said, okay, here's this protected pick and blah, blah, blah. I think it's kind of an incredible deal. Yes, it would have been amazing if it was Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey and Seth Curry. I don't think that was ever going to happen. It didn't happen. And
here's a question for you: do you trade Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and 3 first-round picks for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, blah blah blah, and 2 first? Do you do that?
I've thought about that. I've thought about that. It's yes, right? Isn't Ben Simmons still the better player out of Jared Allen and obviously Karis LeVert? Would you? Well, I don't know.
I am butthurt to see them playing together and having so much fun in Cleveland. It does. I mean, even though I don't really miss LeVert at all, really. I mean, I know people are like, that's sacrilege and you shouldn't do it, but yeah, I know.
I don't miss LeVert at all.
I don't miss him.
He seems like a nice guy.
He's lovely. He's a lovely person, and they have great chemistry. Sorry, what was your question? I just got confused.
Who's better, Ben Simmons or Jared Allen? Like, who is a brighter? I mean, Ben Simmons, if he's mentally okay,
he's got the higher ceiling, and it's not close, but. As of right now, there's questions around Ben Simmons, no doubt. There's like a negative side to this too. I mean, like, I guess it's helpful, maybe not helpful, but do you want to cut to break? You're giving me eyes like there's maybe a cut to break.
Let's cut to break, and then we'll get to the negative side. And we're back.
We're back.
And we're back.
We did it.
And we're back. Okay. Brian, negatives.
I was just saying, I don't want to get bogged down. It's because I ultimately do not think this is a negative situation at all. But let's say worst case scenario. The problem with the Ben Simmons thing is that if this persists, if we go down this path of like, he hasn't fixed any of these problems and any of the drama that comes from his inability to like finish out games and things like that, permeates through this team as well. A big part of doing what we did here is so that, like, as you said last episode, you're like you get a stash. There's a big, I think it's over 50% chance at present, it's definitely over 50% chance that Harden would have walked in the summer, right? Like, it's hard to say, over time that we know that for sure, because like, let's say they go on a really deep playoff run or win it all or whatever, that changes things obviously. But let's say that wasn't the case. Like, you have to plan for a future in which he walks. So, okay, you think he does. So you want to get some money back and some assets back in which you can play with, even if this isn't our year. And I think that it's still, I think we should, if you squint and look at this, are we still favorites? I mean, again, the Kyrie Irving not playing home games makes it so much more complicated than it should be. But like, are we a championship favorite still, I guess is my big question, Mike. Does this solve a lot of the problems?
Well, I will go to BetMGM as I'm talking, because we can look at what Vegas is saying. BetMGM, which is live now in New York, and you could bet if you want to in New York. I think Athletic NY is the code. Look at that organic marketing.
Oh, wow.
So I would say the Bucks are still the favorite to me to come out of the East because of their continuity, everything they have going for them. When their big three is all together, they made a move, and they traded Dante DiVincenzo, the much-discussed Delaware's own Dante DiVincenzo, for Serge Ibaka, one of the friends of Kevin, one of the Fox.
An absolute steal. DiVincenzo was breathtaking.
But who would you guess would be the favorites to win the NBA championship right now? It's your Brooklyn Nets.
You think so? That's what MGM has?
They're plus 400. They are higher. They have better odds. Well, depends how you look at it, but they're the favorites to win the NBA championship. The Warriors are plus 450, the Suns are plus 475, and then the Bucks are plus 650. So still, Vegas still views the Nets, and they were that way before a Ben Simmons trade had happened. Now maybe odds will be updated.
Yeah, did they just not do a refresh? Is that the?
Yeah, maybe there's going to be a refresh coming out soon. If anything, I think it would. I honestly got to say it's going to increase the odds in my mind, because of how acrimonious this potential,
Sure.
like, hey, James Harden's going to come back and play. And he doesn't want to be here and all that stuff. I like, again.
You better be right about this mandate shit, Mike. I'll tell you what, right?
Yeah. Look, talking to some people I may not be.
Oh, no.
What I am disappointed by, if we're going to do disappointment meter, is the Nets did get these 2 first-round picks, and Marks wasn't able to pull off a move quickly for like Jeremy Grant or something. Now, if they would have gotten Jeremy Grant, they would have had to trade Joe Harris. So I wonder if Marks, we had seen Joe Harris's name out there quite a bit. Getting Seth Curry makes Joe Harris expendable on some level, a pretty high level. But I would hope that this is also an indication that Joe Harris is not done for the year. If Marks knew that Joe Harris was done for the year, then I think he would have moved him 100%. Taking those 2 first-round picks and Joe Harris, you can get like a really good. You could get Jeremy Grant right away. Now, I don't know if he's the guy. You know, if you would necessarily need Jeremy Grant. I'm just saying the Nets now have ammo like they didn't have before. They actually have ammo in the offseason to do something that they didn't have before, which could be an interesting move.
The Joe Harris, like, you talked about this in the last 2 episodes, but the suspiciousness of the timing of his further loosening bodies seems yet more suspicious in the wake of this action, this great action, Mike. What to do about the Joe Harris situation?
It's this constant like waiting for this information. That's what this whole month has been about.
Wow.
It's like we have this looming thing on the horizon, whether it's Joe Harris's injury, KD's injury, or James Harden's discontent, and we're just sitting here and waiting.
It is true that this is like the most dejected I've ever been in Nets fandom, and it's weird because it feels like we're toiling in the candy shop. Is what we have all this like amazingness going on all around us, and I just feel such a weird darkness about the team to the point where I was like, I cannot be watching these late Sacramento games. It just can't be happening.
So doesn't that make you excited for Ben Simmons?
It does when I think about it. Like, it's like I was saying, like, a change was needed if after it happens, you look back and you're like, like a little bit of relief, and that's ultimately sort of how I feel. Just if I hate that it was Harden that had to be the linchpin of the thing, it makes sense. It's fine, given what was happening. Because I really like Harden and I think he's great, but this season was just it wasn't it from start to finish with Harden. Somebody was tweeting at us, I'm forgetting who, but was saying that is this 90% Kyrie's fault or what, which obviously spurred a, the same goddamn conversation we've had about Kyrie Irving for this whole season. But I mean, it's not super interesting to go back and forth on, but I do like, I got to think, like, had everyone been engaged and on the same page from day one, this could have been very different. So in a lot of ways, I'm sad to see it go down this way, but like now that it's happened, it's like, okay, fine, move on, flush it out, and get through this godforsaken February.
Yeah, I mean, people have been saying this, but it's going to be very strange in 5 years to look back on the fact that Kyrie, Katie, and James Harden were all playing on the same team, but yet never actually played.
Never actually played 16 total games in 1 year and a half.
Do you remember how good it looked for that brief period of time when James Harden got to this team?
Dude, the Celtics series, we can look back at the Celtics series and be like, my God, that was the team.
Is it actually, could you blame the medical community on this? Because if they didn't get their act together and getting the vaccine so quickly, if there was no vaccine, well, then Kyrie could be playing. Do you know what I mean? So, like, maybe this is the bad portion of the vaccine.
That's actually a good point.
If there's no vaccine,
it's warp speed, dude. It's Trump's fault. They sped it up too fast. Too much warp speed. Yes.
It is. We never got that moment. Ultimately, we never got, like, there was that Celtics series in the playoffs where it kind of looked competitive at times, and then the Nets would just blow away, like go fully, like press the gas and be gone. And it's just gonna be so odd to think about that there was never the moment that we talked about. Let me ask you this. If you had to bet, let's say Ben Simmons starts playing, okay? If you had to bet that the Nets are going to regret the deal while he starts playing, or if everyone's going to start saying, holy shit, do you remember that Ben Simmons is good at basketball?
Well,
what do you expect to happen?
I hope and pray that they roll out the timing of this really carefully and expertly, because I really do not want him to just start like running with just Patty Mills during this period of time. Like, I think that's setting up a weird vibe. I would like to wait. I don't know when Katie's supposed to come back. I would like to time it as closely as possible to that return date and get everyone back gelling, cohesive, as soon as humanly possible. So I don't know if that's, how many more weeks left before Katie comes back?
Well, so the All-Star break happens. So February 17th at home against the Wizards, who the Nets are playing the Wizards tonight, but at home against the Wizards so that's in a week. Then it goes on All-Star break. The Nets don't play again until Thursday, February 24th, with a home game against Boston. That feels like a landing spot for, like, hey, Kevin Durant should be coming back relatively soon. He is very close to the month mark from when he got hurt to now. I mean, let me look when the last game I think he played was at the Bulls game where Bruce Brown ran into his leg.
I guess I can't remember.
So he scored 27 points against the Bulls on January 12th. And then they played Oklahoma City, and then they lost against Oklahoma City. Durant must not have played, or he started that game and then got hurt. So it's been about a month, and that's the projected timeline. So let's tack on those 2 weeks for the All-Star break. He comes back the 24th in 2 weeks. Ben Simmons the team will have had a week off. Ben Simmons' mental state will be better.
I just don't want the meme of they never play together to just like get copy pasted over into this next gen. I just don't want it. I need to get rid of that whole talking point. It sucks.
Well, here's the schedule just for fun. Post All-Star break. Home against Boston, away against Milwaukee, a home and home against Toronto, home against Miami, away against Boston, at Charlotte, at Philly, home for the Knicks, and then there's some bad games after that. But that like initial stretch is all playoff teams. Most of them, I think all of them are Eastern Conference. The Knicks obviously aren't a playoff team, but that's, a rivalry game. 3 of those games are on ABC. Another 3 are on TNT. The spotlight's going to be on the team immediately.
Yeah.
With Ben Simmons. But again, I asked you the question if, Ben Simmons starts playing, are the Nets going to ultimately regret the trade, or everyone's going to be like, holy shit, Ben Simmons is good at basketball? I'm going to bet more that it's holy shit, Ben Simmons is good at basketball. Because I think, I said this to you on the phone, Ben Simmons his entire life has been the best player he's ever, like, he was the best player in Australia. He comes to the U.S. He was best player in college basketball, goes #1 overall. He's one of the best young players in the NBA. And then he had a bad series in the playoffs, and everyone yelled at him and made him feel bad. His coach came out and threw him under the bus. Doc Rivers threw Ben Simmons under the bus. And then he has the mental health stuff, decides to go away from the team. He wants to be away from the team so much he's willing to give up millions and millions of dollars to not be with the team, right? I'm going to bet that his history of being a really great basketball player has not deteriorated just because he's been away from the 76ers not playing basketball games. If anything, we already have a comparable for this. Kyrie Irving didn't start the team with the Brooklyn Nets. He decided not to get vaccinated. The team had banished him. He comes back and looks great. He had a couple of rusty games, and boom, he was fantastic. So I'm going to guess that Ben Simmons is going to look really, really good. Frankly, this situation is a way better situation than in Philly. In Philly, it's been constant. It's been years of discussion. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid don't ultimately fit together. They really don't. Who's he playing with? He's playing with a dynamic ball-handling guard who can shoot from the outside in Kyrie, one of the greatest scorers of all time in Kevin Durant, and he's getting shoved onto that team to be, Draymond Green light, right? Like he's going to be the ultra defender plus like, hey, Ben, we'll get you your spots. Like you're going to have that lane open for you. You're going to be able to operate the way you want to.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a better situation.
No more standing around watching Joel,
No.
flop about. No more of that.
So you're happy.
Yeah, it took me no time at all. I really have, I have a child's mind with this stuff, and dangle some shiny keys in front of me. And Ben Simmons is undeniably a shiny ass set of keys. Like you could do much worse. I'm wondering actually what the vibe is going to be, totally separate from this, like between Seth Curry and Ben Simmons. Like, is there any kind of like, hey, like did you really hate playing with us on that team? Like you're still teammates now. I think he'll be fine. I think he understands how these things go. But yeah, I just hope. I don't know much about Ben Simmons, like the personality and how he can gel with others. My incredibly high EQ tells me that it's not like super a priority for him, and we're on a team where all of the players are like this except for Patty Mills, basically. So, and Blake Griffin. There's others, but the star players seem to have, they're not afraid of being disagreeable, or at least like passive aggressively disagreeable. I think Harden was trying to be a glue guy in many ways and got tired of it. I don't think Ben Simmons has any interest in being a glue guy. Off the court as like an emotional leader or whatever.
Absolutely not.
He is not going to be there. That's not really what he's there for. But then like now we're back into a place where, last year James Harden came in and he was like the leader vibe, right? Everyone there was I forget who it was. I think Jackie McMullen. Yeah. Had the story about it. And that, it kind of passed the eye test for what we were looking at least then. Now we are, back to KD and his authoritarian rule, which might be what this team needs at the moment. I don't know. It's going to be interesting though, one way or another. At least it's interesting. That's really the takeaway, Mike. It's interesting again.
How do you think Kevin Durant feels about all that's transpired?
It's interesting. I gotta think. I mean, do you think that, like, we had this conversation last week about like there's like this sort of unspoken rule between the star players where they just don't like publicly crap on each other? And like, I think that it would have helped.
Besides Joel Embiid,
who rips, who lets it rip. But like, I think behind closed doors, KD understands that like James Harden's like, I do not like this weird drama filled thing. I think he liked it last year. I think there's no reason to think that Harden didn't like playing with it. And then all the comments that came in over the summer about him wanting to sign the extension, I think all of that stuff was true until he played half a season where Kyrie Irving was a focal point for the fact that he wasn't playing. And again, like I said, like he doesn't want it. It's a risk assessment thing for him. Like, I don't want to be beholden to somebody else making these decisions about whether or not I win a championship. Like that's not a James Harden thing to do. So I think KD sees it and he's like, I get it, on some level. KD's already signed up. He doesn't get to be that way. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I do think there's an element of like I do think he would like to have played and for it to have worked out with James Harden, and it didn't. And who's he going to blame for that? I'm not saying he's going around yelling at Sean Marks or Joe Tsai and saying, you know, you guys screwed this up. He's not yelling at Steve Nash, but it's a negative moment in his time here at the Nets, and he hasn't really had too many like big negative moments, right? Like they've built the team around him. They've given him the keys to the franchise on all the levels. They made the James Harden deal in part because of Kevin Durant. But I do think it is, regardless of how you can feel about James Harden, you could be very critical of him. It is partially a failing of the Nets organization for it not working out. There's a lot of bad circumstances that happened. There was the injuries and Kyrie's vaccination stance. It's still a failing. You know, it's not like you're not going to put this on your resume if you're Sean Marks. On Sean Marks's LinkedIn, there's not going to be a bullet point that said, I traded for James Harden, but then I had to trade him a year later, right? Like that's not a motivating factor for a recruiter, for a LinkedIn recruiter.
I'll be very interested to see how James Harden looks on the Sixers right away. You know, I'll be if he still looks a step slow and a little not James Harden of yore, I'll be like, you know what, Sean, you bit the bullet. You had to do it. You did it. You did the right thing. But if he comes back and he's just styling and profiling on our asses, I'm gonna be more angry at James Harden than I am today, probably, for dogging it. Yeah.
James Harden better be ready because as much as he hated the weather and taxes in Brooklyn, the Nets are about the sweetest fan base you could have.
It's a very,
you know, it's New York City, but we're very nice. Ultimately, we're a very polite fan base.
Incredibly.
We support the team. We've been through hell. It's you know, we just want to see dubs.
Yeah.
And you're going to Philly. Philly has expectations.
Yeah.
They've booed Joel Embiid many, many times. You better be ready. You better know what you've just asked for. And also, if I'm Joel Embiid, I know that he wanted this trade. He hated Ben Simmons by the end of it. He wanted this trade. I know he's happy. But Joel Embiid, you just got pushed out of the power structure. Like James Harden is being asserted above you in the power. It's going to happen.
It's his team. He's got the brand.
It's his team. He knows the GM. He knows the team president. It's his vibe. Like he's taking it over, and you don't realize it yet, Joel. But it's going to happen.
There it is.
And so just be ready for when Joel Embiid gets traded to the Sacramento Kings in 15 years. Let's do some quick bites before we get out.
Bite me. How about that Porzingis trade, Mike? You got to be excited. Sorry, I just jumped in right ahead.
Well, I don't think we've talked enough about, just real quick, Seth Curry, elite shooter.
Yeah.
He shot he's basically shot like 44% over his career. And he's always been a high volume guy. Can't really play defense, but he's at the same level like Patty Mills, you know, smaller, active defender, but not that good. Elite shooter. Andre Drummond, I'm excited about. Not really, but
not really.
You know,
he's a pretty well proven quantity at this point, and I think he's most likely to frustrate rather than excite.
Yeah. I think there's some curse of when you become a big man for the Nets, you're just going to be diminished.
Even if you, and especially if you come diminished, then you become like just a walking corpse. Yeah.
Are you happy for Paul Millsap?
If he sticks it out, I'll be watching the waiver wire to see if Paul sticks it out. But yeah, good for him. Good for sticking. I mean, if he can stick it out there, that's great. That's a good fit.
I wonder who's going to be coming in the buyout market, because there's going to be a lot of guys that are released on the buyout market. I know he has probably no interest in coming to Brooklyn, but Goran Dragic is, if I'm the Nets, and I can offer any amount of extra money to get Goran not to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
Because the Mavericks traded for Spencer Dinwiddie. So maybe they have Jalen Brunson there already. Maybe Goran Dragic is like, the whole reason why people think he's going there is because him and Luka are boys. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't need a point guard there.
Yeah.
And if Dragic is available, now he may just go back to Miami.
That's a pretty slick buyout. That's a good call, Mike.
I would be pounding the table for that. Lastly, are the Nets better?
I mean, yeah, it's hard to argue that at least in the short term, yes, because holy God, was that what we were just watching? Not some of the worst basketball I've ever seen. So short term, undeniably. Long term, or in terms of our like the greatest heights that either of these two teams could be, I actually don't. I don't know. I think Ben Simmons has a little bit to prove to me to say undeniably that, like, yes, I think it's certainly possible, and I think that the chemistry could be better. But I mean, like, we have to remind ourselves again. I'm still coming around to this a little bit. Last year we had the most efficient offense in league history. The thing broke down, and it has not looked good lately. The idea that we'll get back to there seems dubious. Obviously, our defensive chops will be helped by Ben Simmons. I hope so. I think it's a close call. I'm not sure. I think the ceiling of the Harden-led Nets had, but then Harden turned it off. So, it's weird. It's, it's a meat grinder, Mike.
Yeah. So the heights of this current season are higher with Harden. Like, they're higher with Harden than without Simmons and Curry and Durant.
But 2 years from now, that's.
But I think the future is brighter. I think all of us have been increasingly terrified of the thought of
Oof.
James Harden being on the books for $60 million when
scary.
he's a big fat,
Come on,
big fat guard. So I would have been scared. So I think in the future, it actually kind of Ben Simmons we want to see play, and it's going to answer a lot of questions once he comes back on the floor. But he's 25, I think.
Young man. He's a young man.
He has a full contract. I don't want to say he comes without problems. He comes with like many, 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 many problems. He just didn't get along with dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not even talking about mental health. He just like didn't get along with a lot of the guys on the team. That's not that great. But he's going to be the third guy, and he's going to have a chance to grow under the tutelage of Kyrie Irving. Is that what we want?
Yeah, right.
Wait,
right.
What do we do? What do we do here?
Yeah, the problem's not. That's ultimately my problem. Is the problem's not solved here, Mike? That's the real problem.
I know he really needs to get vaccinated because I don't know.
On that note, yeah.
I don't think the Nets are playing the Wizards. The Wizards have traded like their entire team.
Yeah, who's playing tonight?
So I think they traded Aaron Holiday, Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans, and Aaron Holiday. So Beal is already out for the season with wrist injury. They got Kristaps Porzingis, but apparently now there's rumors that Porzingis' knee bruise is worse than previously thought. That's kind of why
rescind.
The Mavericks made the deal.
How about that Bertans? Are you going to be sad to see Bertans go and his narrow shoulders? His energy is so shitty. Like he just the whole time looks like he's about to snap at everybody.
Do you know the nasty cliche when we were growing up? It's like a guy in a contract year is going to play well and then suck.
Mm-hmm.
Bertans did that.
Yeah.
Like he was electric as a shooter, and then he sucked.
Yeah.
And he does have the skinniest body. Like
so the shoulders and the neck they flow right into one another. Why is his
dude? Yeah. I mean, Luka's a magician, so there's a chance that like Luka revives him, but that was a wild trade. So hey, real quick, the Bucks got Ibaka. The Heat did nothing. The Raptors actually made a bunch of moves they got like Thad Young, and I think they got a couple of other pieces that are interesting. The Celtics traded Dennis Schroeder, I think, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, to the Rockets.
And they brought in someone for Josh Richard. Oh, they got Derek White, which is actually a really good deal for them.
Oh, Mike, they waived Enes Kanter. Think he'll come over?
Don't. We don't need to mix him and Kyrie together. That'll be the all.
I mean, he's been pretty.
His team.
He's been pretty provocative towards your boy Josiah. So
I don't know if this is true, but I saw that Enes Freedom.
Sorry, Enes Freedom. My mistake.
I think he's going to be at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Enes, what are you getting yourself into?
Does he know? Does he have an understanding?
Oh yeah, dude. He's making the rounds, man. I mean, I don't know if he knows, but he's like he's starting to know figure out where his bread is buttered for sure.
My one final thing. I truly, deeply, absolutely hope the Nets play the 76ers in the playoffs. I could not be frothier in the drama of James Harden and Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, Doc Rivers, Drummond, Embiid, Curry going against his father-in-law and Doc Rivers. You know, I could not be more excited for that possibility. So I want to see that. That's it.
I love it, Mike. Hey, how do you feel? You feeling okay? You feeling good?
Emergency pod.
Emergency pod.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, me too.
to
I
be
got
honest.
tired over the course of that.
Because it was like, this was just, I honestly was like always looking at my phone for the past few days.
Yeah.
Because you never knew when it was going to happen. And it happened.
We're off the hook now, Mike. Time to tie one on. Let's go crazy.
Hi, Brian.
At BK Glue Guys on Twitter. TheAthletic.com. Put in Glue Guys at the promo code, right? That's the promo code.
Yes.
And then Netsdaily.com. That's the source for the Nets news. And Discord. Hop in there. iTunes, 5 stars if you want them. We need them. I think that's everything. That's pretty much everything. Bye, everybody.
Bye.